let me ask about Masvidal. 37 years old, made a lot of money in the last couple of years. You know, he had that first fight with Usman where he had Dana White overbarrel a little bit, where the opponent fell out because of COVID at the last minute. They needed a big name. He was able to get a pretty damn good number from what we all understand. Rightfully so. You guys should make all the money in the world when you guys get in the ring, and there's a chance you don't come out of that octagon definitely the same as you went in. So you can't get enough money. That's just the way I feel. And I feel the same way in my sport about the boxers. But here he is, Masvidal. He's lost 2 fights in a row, convincingly. He's 37 years old. He's made a lot of money. Where's he go from here? And before I leave it, to start with you, Chael, I thought, and tell me if I'm wrong, I thought that there was a lot of guys he could still beat, that, you know, he was good enough, but there's certain guys he probably can't. But there's a lot of good fights out there that he can still win. I didn't feel like it's the end of the line, off the cliff. That's it. I didn't feel that way. I just felt that he was in there with a guy who's special. Your feelings?
One of the greatest things that Dana White has ever done, and I've never heard him get credit for it, we'll give it to him now, but one of the great things that he ever did is within our sport, he made losing acceptable. In the sport of boxing, if you lose a fight, you're not going to be a main event. If you lose 3 fights, you'll never fight for a championship. If you lose 5 fights, you are a bum, and that is how they'll remember you. In this sport, the one thing that Colby and Masvidal had in front of their sold-out main event spot of T-Mobile Arena, they both were coming off losses. In all fairness, the biggest star in our sports, Conor McGregor, I've lost track of how many losses he's had in a row. The second is Jorge Masvidal. He's lost 3 in a row. And the third is Nate Diaz, who's batting 500. In all fairness, in MMA, for whatever reason, but it's a very good thing, when iron is on iron, when we know guys are risking it and guys are only taking on the best, it's okay if they come in second. And I really think as far as Masvidal goes, being the sport's second biggest draw, to put him in there with Conor McGregor, who's the sport's biggest draw, makes all the sense in the world. I even think I've got the weekend. Let's do it in July at International Fight Week.
I love
that
think
fight. I'm real close. I think I'm real close. Maybe you insert Nate Diaz in there, but I think we're down to those final 3 who's going to headline that show. I think Masvidal's got great options. And don't forget, with his new lucrative contract, all that contract and all that money means is he will be returning to a main event, which means he needs to get himself in 5-round shape, and he can start right now.
Well, and I think he needs to get himself into a little bit of controversy. That's kind of the weird spot that Masvidal is in. He can still beat a lot of guys in the division. He absolutely can, but it's got to matter for the paycheck that he's getting. The UFC is not going to, they're not just going to stick him in the queue and start fighting people that nobody knows. It's going to be big names. They're going to be tough fights. And I'm going to steal one of Chael's ideas from the weekend. I like him in there with the Diaz brother, but I think Nick Diaz is probably the bigger draw right now. I don't necessarily know if that's the route that anybody's going to go, but that's got a built-in storyline. That fight built itself. He already beat Nick's little brother. Masvidal is going to rub that in his face as many times as he possibly can. I would have never thought about that. Chael brought it up over the weekend. I thought it was a fantastic idea, but those are the kind of storylines and fights that Masvidal is going to have to be in because he's got to justify that big paycheck he's getting.
Chael, you think that they'll put Nick in? I thought that Nick in his last fight looked like he couldn't have cared less, like he didn't want to be there. I was like shocked at the performance.
And even worse than that is the reason Nick looked that way is because he had a long layoff. So our prediction, Anthony and I were both in agreement here that Nick's going to get a quick turnaround. It's been the opposite. Nick has been radio silent. Dana weighed in at one time, it was about 2 months ago, and Dana said, and I quote, "I don't know if Nick Diaz is ever going to fight again." Generally, if you're Nick or you're Nick's manager or trainer, you come out and you stop that narrative. You say, yes, we are. But Nick lived with it. He went very quiet. So I do think that's a tough one. I think that's a massive fight. I think it makes sense. And I think the fans would get behind it. I don't know that I'm bullish that it's going to happen. And Masvidal is in a very unique spot. And it's only Masvidal and Conor and Nate Diaz that live on this little island. It does not matter who they fight next. In boxing, they say the only 2 guys that could draw on their own was Mike Tyson and Oscar De La Hoya. I think you need to amend that list and add Floyd Mayweather to it. But in all fairness, in our sports, pretty much the same, unless you're Conor, unless you're Masvidal, unless you're Nate Diaz. It turns out they're all in the same weight class. Let's start getting those matchups going and start having a lot of fun over here in the world of MMA.
I think they're going to make Nate and Conor, Nate and Dustin.
I'm hearing that rumor too. That could be. I do believe the single biggest fight, if you want to get the world's attention and really have some fun, we don't get to use that word very often in the fight game. This is serious. This is intense, high stakes, fun. If you really want to have some fun, you just get Conor McGregor and you put him in there with Jorge Masvidal. You put the BMF title in the line. You pick the arena. We will sell that out in 24 hours.
I think it's brilliant. You said that earlier. You're right. I just wanted to make it really crystal clear, because when you said that, it became so obvious. Really, I mean, you're brilliant with it, but it didn't even seem brilliant. It just seemed like, yeah, that makes sense.